I want to tell you a story. It's about a man named Arthur, and it's about a day that started with a heavy heart. A day that almost broke him, until a knock on his door changed everything. Arthur Henderson woke up early, just like he did every single day. The sun was barely peeking through his curtains, but Arthur knew what day it was. His heart knew, even if the world seemed to have forgotten. It was March 12th, his 90th birthday. He sat on the edge of his bed. The old wooden floor felt cold beneath his bare feet. 90 years, a long time, a lifetime filled with so many memories. Some good, some not so good. He sighed, a deep, weary sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all those years. He got dressed slowly. His movements were stiff. His old bones ached a little more today, he thought. Or maybe it was just the loneliness seeping in. He made his way to the small kitchen. The kettle whistled. He made himself a cup of tea. Black, no sugar, just the way his late wife, Martha, used to make it for him. Martha, he missed her every day. But on days like this, the missing felt like a sharp pain in his chest. He sat at his small kitchen table. The silence in the house was loud, deafening. He looked at the telephone on the wall. It remained quiet. He glanced towards the front door, expecting, perhaps, the familiar sound of the mailman, hoping for a card. Any card. But the morning slipped by. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and still, nothing. No calls, no cards, no visitors. Arthur was a veteran. He had served his country bravely, long ago in a war that most people only read about in history books now. He had seen things no young man should ever see. He had lost friends, good friends. He had come home changed, but he had built a life. With Martha, they had a son, Michael. But Michael lived so far away now, with his own family, his own busy life. Arthur understood, or at least he tried to. Lunchtime came and went. He ate a small sandwich. Alone, he watched a bit of television. The voices from the screen filled the silence, but they couldn't fill the emptiness in his heart. He remembered birthdays from the past. Martha would bake a cake. Michael would be there, his eyes shining with excitement. Friends would call. There would be laughter. Warmth. Now there was just the quiet hum of the refrigerator, and the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. Tick-tack. Each tick marking another moment of being forgotten. He tried to tell himself it didn't matter. 90 was just a number. He was an old man. People had their own lives, their own worries. Why should they remember his birthday? But deep down, it did matter. It mattered a lot, to feel remembered, to feel like you still counted for something. The afternoon shadows began to stretch across his living room floor. Hope, which had been a tiny flicker in the morning, was now almost completely gone. He felt a tear escape his eye. He wiped it away quickly, angrily. He was an old soldier. He shouldn't cry, but the loneliness was a heavy blanket, smothering him. He thought about his service, his comrades, David Miller, his best friend during the war. They had been through so much together. They had promised to always stay in touch, but life had a way of pulling people apart. The years had passed. He hadn't heard from David or David's family in such a long time. He wondered if David was even still. He pushed the thought away. He closed his eyes. Maybe he would just go to bed early. Forget this day. Forget this feeling of being utterly alone. And then he heard it. A knock, sharp, clear, on his front door. Arthur's eyes snapped open. His heart gave a sudden lurch. Who could it be? At this time of day, he wasn't expecting anyone. Nobody ever came unannounced. He stood up slowly. His legs felt a little shaky. He walked to the door. His hand hovered over the doorknob. A part of him was afraid. Afraid of who it might be. Or perhaps afraid it was just a mistake. Someone at the wrong house. He took a deep breath, and he opened the door. Standing on his porch was a young woman. She looked to be in her early 20s. She had kind eyes, and a gentle smile. She was holding a small, neatly wrapped package in her hands. Arthur blinked. He didn't recognize her. "Yes?" he said, his voice a little hoarse. The young woman's smile widened a little. "Mr. Arthur Henderson?" she asked. Her voice was soft. "Yes, that's me," Arthur replied, still confused. "My name is Sarah," she said. "Sarah Miller. My grandfather was David Miller. He served with you in the war." David Miller. The name echoed in Arthur's mind. His best friend. A wave of memories washed over him. David's laugh. Their shared fears. Their promises. It felt like a lifetime ago. David, Arthur said, his voice barely a whisper. How is David? He hadn't dared to hope. Sarah's smile faltered slightly. Her eyes filled with a gentle sadness. Grandpa David passed away a few months ago. Mr. Henderson, she said softly. I'm so sorry. The words hit Arthur like a physical blow. David. Gone. The last link to that part of his life. A deep ache settled in his chest, alongside the loneliness that had been his companion all day. He leaned against the doorframe for support. So many losses. So many goodbyes. Sarah looked at him with such compassion. I know this must be a shock, she said gently. But Grandpa, he talked about you often, especially towards the end. He never forgot you. Never forgot him. The words hung in the air. Before he passed, Sarah continued, her voice a little shaky now. He made me promise something. He knew your 90th birthday was coming up. He wanted you to have this. She held out the small package. Arthur stared at it. Then at Sarah, then back at the package. David had remembered. Even when everyone else had forgotten. Even when he was no longer here. His hands trembled as he reached for the gift. It was small, simply wrapped, but it felt like the heaviest thing he had ever held. He also left this for you, Sarah said, pulling a sealed envelope from her coat pocket. A letter. He wrote it for you. For today. A letter. From David. Arthur felt his eyes burn. He didn't know what to say. He just stood there, clutching the gift and the letter. Sarah seemed to understand. May I come in for a moment, Mr. Henderson? She asked. It's a bit chilly out here. Arthur blinked, as if waking from a dream. Oh yes. Of course, please. Come in. He stepped back, opening the door wider. Sarah stepped inside. The house felt a little less empty with her presence. Arthur led her into the small living room. He gestured towards an old armchair. Please sit down. He sat on the edge of his own chair, the package and letter still in his hands. Grandpa David always said you were the bravest man he knew. Sarah said, her voice soft. He told me so many stories. About your time together. How you looked out for each other. Arthur swallowed hard. Memories. Flooding back. Good ones. Difficult ones. Shared ones. David. He was a good man. Arthur managed to say. The best friend a man could ask for. He wanted to be here himself. Sarah said, her eyes glistening. He really did. He kept saying, I have to make it to Arthur's 90th. But, it wasn't to be. Arthur nodded slowly. He understood. Life was like that. Unpredictable. Cruel sometimes. But then he looked at Sarah, and he looked at the gift in his hands. And he felt something else. Something warm. A connection. He told me how important your friendship was to him. Sarah continued. He said you were like a brother. He never forgot the day you saved his life. Arthur looked up, surprised. He hadn't thought about that day in years. A day of smoke and fear and chaos. A day when he had done what anyone would have done for a friend. We saved each other. More than once, Arthur said quietly. He made me promise. Sarah repeated, her voice earnest. He said, Sarah, when the time comes, you find Arthur, you give him this, and you tell him I remembered. Tears welled up in Arthur's eyes again, but this time, they weren't tears of loneliness. They were tears of gratitude, of love, of remembrance. David had remembered. His friend. He looked down at the letter. His name was written on the front, in David's familiar handwriting, slightly shaky, but undeniably David's. Would you like me to leave you to read it? Sarah asked gently. Arthur shook his head. No, please. Stay, if you don't mind. He felt like he needed someone there, someone to share this moment with. He carefully opened the envelope. His hands were still trembling. He unfolded the single sheet of paper, and he began to read. David's words filled the quiet room. Words of friendship, of shared memories, of laughter and hardship. He wrote about their youth, their dreams, their time in the service. He wrote about Martha, how happy he was when Arthur found her. He wrote about his own life, his family, his regrets, and his enduring affection for his old friend. The letter wasn't long, but every word was precious. Every sentence was a gift. At the end, David had written, Happy 90th birthday, old friend. I wish I could be there to shake your hand. Know that I'm raising a glass to you wherever I am. Don't ever think you're forgotten. Some bonds, they last forever. Your friend David. Arthur finished reading. He lowered the letter slowly. Tears were streaming down his face now. He didn't bother to wipe them away. He looked at Sarah. Her own eyes were wet. He was a good man, Arthur whispered. A very good man. He was, Sarah agreed, her voice thick with emotion. And he loved you very much, Mr. Henderson. Arthur then looked at the small package. With fumbling fingers he undid the ribbon. He carefully tore away the wrapping paper. Inside was a small tarnished silver medal, an old service medal, one he recognized. It was David's, one David had been particularly proud of. And beside it a small framed photograph, a very old photograph, of two young men in uniform, smiling arms around each other's shoulders. Arthur and David, young, full of life, full of hope. Arthur picked up the photograph. He ran his thumb over the image of his friend. A sob escaped him, not of sadness entirely, but of overwhelming emotion, of love, of loss, of a friendship that had spanned a lifetime and even, it seemed, beyond. He wanted you to have that, Sarah said softly. He said you'd understand. And Arthur did understand. This wasn't just a gift, it was a piece of David, a piece of their shared history, a reminder that he was not forgotten, that he was loved. They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments. The heavy cloak of loneliness that had enveloped Arthur all day began to lift, slowly, surely, replaced by a warmth that spread through his heart. Then Sarah smiled. Actually, she said, reaching for a bag she'd placed by her chair. Grandpa also said no birthday is complete without a cake. She pulled out a small cake box. It's not much, just a little something I picked up. She opened the box. Inside was a small simple cake, with one candle on top. Arthur looked at the cake, and then at Sarah, this kind young woman, David's granddaughter, who had come all this way, to keep a promise, to deliver a message of love. He even told me your favorite, Sarah said, her eyes twinkling. Lemon, with buttercream frosting. Arthur chuckled, a real chuckle, the first one in a long, long time. David always remembered things like that, he said, shaking his head in wonder. Sarah lit the candle. The tiny flame danced in the dimming light of the room. Happy birthday, Mr. Henderson, she said softly. And for the first time all day Arthur felt it. He truly felt it. Happy birthday. They shared the cake. Sarah told him more stories about David, about her own life. She was a history student, fascinated by her grandfather's stories. That's why David had entrusted her with this mission. He knew she would understand its importance. Arthur talked too. He told Sarah stories he hadn't shared in years. Stories about David, about the war, about Martha, about his life. It felt good to talk, to be heard, to be seen. As Sarah was getting ready to leave, she hesitated at the door. Mr. Henderson, she said, hearing Grandpa's stories, and now yours, it's made me realize something. There are so many veterans like you, with so many stories that need to be heard, so many who might feel forgotten. Arthur nodded. He knew she was right. I've been thinking, Sarah continued, a new determination in her voice. Maybe I could start something, at my university, a group to connect with veterans, to listen to their stories, to make sure they know they're appreciated, that they're remembered. Arthur looked at her, this young woman, full of kindness and purpose. A new kind of hope blossomed in his chest, not just for himself, but for others too. That, Arthur said, his voice strong, that would be a wonderful thing, Sarah, a truly wonderful thing. Sarah smiled, a bright, beautiful smile. Thank you, Mr. Henderson, for everything, and happy birthday, again. Thank you, Sarah, Arthur said, his heart full. Thank you for remembering, for bringing David back to me, just for a little while. After Sarah left, Arthur stood by the window for a long time. The house was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. It wasn't empty, it was filled with memories, with warmth, with the echoes of friendship and unexpected kindness. His 90th birthday, it had started as a day of profound loneliness, a day he thought the world had forgotten, but a knock on his door had changed everything. It brought him a connection to his past, a gift from a beloved friend, and a new friendship with a remarkable young woman. Arthur picked up the photograph of him and David. He smiled. No, he wasn't forgotten, not at all. And somehow he knew this birthday was not an ending, but perhaps, in a way, a new beginning. What an incredible turn of events for Arthur, wasn't it? It just goes to show that even in our darkest, loneliest moments, a single act of kindness, a single remembered promise, can change everything. It reminds us of the power of connection, of remembering those around us, especially those who have given so much. Thank you for listening to Arthur's story. If it touched your heart, please give this video a like, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced or witnessed an act of kindness that changed someone's day, or even their life? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming and inspiring stories like this one. And if you know someone who might need to hear this story, please share it with them. You never know whose day you might brighten. Until next time, take care and remember to look out for one another.